Lesson 28, I will represent and solve three-digit dividend division with divisors of 2, 3, 4, and 5 numerically. Okay, so in this lesson, you can see the directions say we're going to divide and we're going to check your work by multiplying. Draw disc on a place value chart as needed. So what this means is, if you are still struggling to understand the standard algorithm, please get out your place value chart, your dry erase place value chart, and use it to help you as you are dividing. But you still have to show how you are dividing using the standard algorithm. So I'm going to go ahead and show standard algorithm, and we're also going to check our work. But if you need to get out your place value chart and do that before, please go ahead and do that. All right, so we have 574. And we are dividing it by 2. So just like we would if we had a place value chart, if we had 500s and we were going to put them into two groups, how much would be in each group? Well, there would be 2, right? And then we would see if we had any hundreds left over. So 2 hundreds times 2 is 4 hundreds. That means I have 100 left over. Well, I can't take 100 and divide it into 2, so I'm going to decompose it into tens, and now I have 17 tens. So I take my 17 tens and I put them into two groups. So how many would be in each group? So I'm thinking 8 times 2 is 16. So that would get me as close to 17 as I can get without going over, and I have 1 10 left over. I can't take 1 and divide it by 2, so I have to decompose this 10 into ones and add it to these 4 ones, and now I have 14 ones. 14 ones divided by 2. If I counted by 2s, I would say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And that would be 7 2s. 7 times 2 is 14. So I have a remainder of 0. So now I'm ready to check using multiplication. So I'm going to take my quotient. I was dividing by 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2. I'm going to pause the video here. You go ahead and multiply by 2 and see what you get. Okay, so I started with 7 ones times 2, and 7 times 2 gave me 14, so I carried the 1 to the tens place. 8 tens times 2 gave me 16 tens, plus my 1 10 here gave me 17 tens. 2 hundreds times 2 is 4 hundreds, plus 1 more gives me 5 hundreds. So I had 574, so my answer matches my dividend, so that means that my answer must be correct. All right, let's try 863 divided by 3, or 861 divided by 3. I'm going to talk you through this one. If you feel like you can go ahead and do this all by yourself, then you go right ahead. You do not have to stay with me. You can pause the video and then come back to check. But if you want to do it with me, just go right ahead. All right, so I'm thinking to myself, how many 3s are in 8? So I would say 3, 6. So that would be 2. So if I had if I had 8 hundreds and I put them into 3 groups, there would be 2 in each group. But that would only take 2 times 3, which is 6. That means that I would have some hundreds left over. I would have 2 hundreds left over. Since I can't take 2 and divide it by 3, I'm going to decompose these 2 hundreds and add it to these 6 tens. Now I have 26 tens. So I'm counting by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. And I can't go any more. So that was 8 3s. I'm going to put that in the tens place. But 8 times 3 only uses 24 of my tens. So that means that I have 2 tens left over. I'm going to add it to this 1. So now when I decompose these 2 tens, now I have 21 ones. So when I count by 3s again, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. That was 7 3s. 7 times 3 is exactly 21, so that gives me an answer of 0. I want you to check this problem all by yourself, and let's come back and see if you did it the same way I did. Okay, so when I'm checking a division problem, I always start with my quotient, which was 287. I was dividing by 3, so I'm going to multiply by 3. So I started with 7 times 3, which gave me 21. And then I did 8 times 3, which is 24, plus my 2 tens gives me 26. And 2 hundreds times 3 gives me 6 hundreds, plus 2 more gives me 861. So my dividend and my product matches, so my answer must be correct. All right, so we're going to try one more. All right, so I've got 354 divided by 2. I'd like for you to try to do as much of this problem as you can all by yourself. I want you to pause the video and go as far as you can. When you get stuck, you can always press play, but I want you to try to do at least part of this by yourself. Okay, so let's see how you did. So I started with my hundreds. I had 3 hundreds, and 3 hundreds divided by 2 will give me 1 because I can put 3 hundreds into 2 groups with 1 in each group. So I went ahead and subtracted. 1 times 2 is 2. And when I subtracted, I was left with 100. And I took that 100 and I decomposed it into tens, and I added it to these 5 tens. So then I took 15, and I put 15 into groups of 2. So I thought to myself, how many 2s are in 15? And the answer to that is 7. And then I multiplied. 7 times 2 is 14, and I subtracted. So that left me with 110, and I added my 110 to my 4 ones, so now I have 14 ones. So I took 14 ones and divided it by 2, which again is 7. 7 times 2 is 14, so I ended up with no remainder. So then it was time to check my work. So I took my quotient, which was 177. I was dividing by 2, so I multiplied by 2, and that gave me an answer of 354. Okay, let's try D. Again, I want you to do as much of this problem as you can by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play, but I want you to try to do as much as you can by yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at how you did. We have 3 hundreds divided by 3. So that would put 1 in each group. We used 100 3 times, so we used up 3 hundreds, so we had no hundreds left. So now it's time to divide the tens. 5 tens divided by 3, again, would be 110. But we only used 110 3 times, so when we took that away, we were left with 2 tens, which I added to these 4 ones. That gave me 24 ones divided by 3, which was 8 ones. 8 times 3 was 24. I had no ones left over. So then it was time to check. I took my quotient. I was dividing by 3, so this time I multiplied times 3. And I had 8 times 3, which was 24. 1 times 3, which was 3, plus 2 is 5. And then 1 times 3, which is 3. Okay? All right, we've got another problem here. 873 divided by 4. Again, I want you to try to do as much of this problem as you can by yourself. Hopefully you're finding that you can do more and more every time by yourself. Okay, so let's see how you did. I took 8 hundredths and I put them into 4 groups. That put 2 hundredths in each group. So I used 2 hundredths 4 times, so that used all 8 hundredths, and that left me with no hundreds left over. So then I brought down the tens to be divided. 7 tens divided by 4, put 110 in each group. 110 times 4 used up 4 tens. When I subtracted, that left me with 3 tens. I added that to the 3 ones. That gave me 33 ones. I put those into 4 groups, so I counted by 4s. When I counted by 4s, I got all the way to 32, and that was 8 4s. 8 times 4 is 32, so when I subtracted, that left me with the remainder of 1. So then it was time to check. I took my quotient, which is 218. I was dividing by 4, so I multiplied times 4, and that gave me 872. And then I added my remainder of 1, and that gave me 873. So hopefully you're starting to become more comfortable with this process. Let's try another problem. Try this one again all by yourself and see how much you can do before you have to press play. Okay, so let's see how you did. So I had 5 hundredths and I put them into 5 groups. So that gave me 100 in each group. And then I multiplied 1 times 5, which was 5. So I used up all my hundredths. I had none left over. So I took my hundreds, which was none, and I added them to the tens. So I had 9 tens. And then I took 9 tens and I put them into groups of 5, or into 5 groups. So how many would be in each group? Well, I still would only have enough to put 1 in each group. But 1 in each group would be 1 times 5, means that I only used 5 tens, so I had 4 tens left over. I added my 4 tens to my 1 1, and that gave me 41 ones. So when I counted by fives to 41, I didn't get to 41, but I got as close as I could when I got to 8 fives, and 8 times 5 was 40, so that left me with 1 left over. So I had 118 with the remainder of 1. And then when I checked my work, I started with my quotient. I was dividing by 5, so I multiplied times 5, and that gave me an answer of 590, which I added to my remainder, and that gave me 591. Okay, so problem G is a little bit different. You had a problem like this in Zerm, and I want to walk through this one with you because we have 275 divided by 3. I'm going to draw a place value chart over here. You don't have to, but I just want you to look at it. So I have hundreds, tens, and ones. I have 2 hundreds, 7 tens, and 5 ones. Now I'm not going to take this all the way through the process, but I'm dividing by 3, so I'm going to put this into 3 groups. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So look what happens when I try to divide my hundreds. I don't have enough to put in 3 groups, so I automatically have to take these 200s and unbundle them and move them to the tens place. So when I get ready to divide over here using long division, I can't say that I'm going to put 200s in 3 groups because I can't do that. I have to look at this as 27 tens before I ever get started. So 27 tens divided by 3. So I got to think to myself, how many 3s are in 27? Well, that would be 9. But you have to be careful not to put the 9 in the hundreds place because these are not hundreds, these are tens. They have to go in the tens place. So now I have 9 tens times 3, which is 27. So I used all 27 tens, and now I'm going to divide my ones. I have 5 ones. I'd put them into 3 groups. That's 1 in each group. And that leaves me with 2 left over. So I have 91, remainder 2. So now I'm going to pause the video. We're going to check this just like we would any other problem and see if we get 275. So let's see if we got the same answer. When I did 91 times 3, that gave me 273. And then I added our remainder of 2. So I ended up with 275. Okay, let's take a look at H. So H is going to be very similar to the last problem that we did. We have 459 divided by 5. So again, if I had 400s, like in my place value chart, if I had 400s, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I tried to put them into 5 groups. Let's make 5 groups here. So you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Well, I can't. I don't have enough to give everybody 1. So I automatically have to take all of these hundreds and unbundle them. So instead of having 4 hundreds, I'm going to have 45 tens. Now I can divide 45 tens by 5. When I count by 5s to 45, it takes 9 5s. And 9 times 5 is exactly 45. And then after this, it's just like any other problem. I have no tens left over. I'm going to divide my ones. 9 ones divided by 5 is 1. And when I subtract, I'm left with the remainder of 4. All right, so go ahead and check and see if you get 459. Okay, so when I had 91 times 5, I ended up with 455. Then I added 4, which gave me 459. Now, I want you to try to do I all by yourself and see if you can do as much of it as you can without pressing play. Maybe you can do the whole thing. Okay, so let's see how you did. So I had 600s divided by 4. If I have 600s, can I put them into 4 groups? Well, this time I can. They wanted to see if you truly understood. I can. I can put 1 in each group, which gives me 400s, and I'm left with 200s. I added my 2 hundreds to my 7 tens. That gave me 27 tens. So I had to think about how many 4s are in 27. And the answer to that is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. So that left 3 tens, and I debundled or unbundled my 3 tens and added them to my 8 ones. I had 38 ones. 38 divided by 4 is 9, and 9 times 4 is 36, and that left me with a remainder of 2. So then when I checked my work, I had 169 times 4, which is 676, plus 2, which is 678. Okay, we are going to stop here. I know that there is a problem J, and there is also an application problem, but we are going to stop here for time's sake, and I hope that you are aware that any time you need to use your place value chart, get it out and use it. It is a perfectly fine tool to use to help you with this long division.